The gunshot that shattered the peace of Aurora, Colorado territory in 1872, wasn't meant to kill, but it certainly got everyone's attention. Charlotte O'Malley lowered her father's Colt revolver, smoke still curling from the barrel as she stared at the would-be thief who'd attempted to steal supplies from her mercantile. The man was sprawled in the dirt outside her store, clutching his hat that now sported a neat hole through its crown. "Next time, I won't aim for the hat," she announced, her voice carrying across the dusty Main Street. Several onlookers nodded in approval. Charlotte's aim was legendary in these parts. At 25, she'd been running O'Malley's general store alone for 3 years since her father passed, and no one dared take advantage of the young woman who could outshoot most men in the territory. Charlotte blew the lingering smoke from her gun barrel and holstered the weapon beneath her practical skirt. The would-be thief scrambled to his feet, clutching his damaged hat. "You're crazy, woman," he shouted, backing away. Charlotte crossed her arms. "I'm practical. Now get out of my town before I decide to practice my aim somewhere more painful than your hat." The crowd that had gathered chuckled as the man hurried away, mounting his horse and galloping out of Aurora as if the devil himself were in pursuit. Charlotte turned to the spectators, her chestnut hair gleaming in the afternoon sun. "Show's over, folks. I've got a store to run." As the crowd dispersed, Charlotte caught sight of Sheriff Taylor approaching, his weathered face creased with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. "Miss O'Malley, must you always handle things your own way?" he asked, though his tone held no real rebuke. Charlotte smiled. "Would you rather I had waited for you while that scoundrel made off with my inventory? Besides, I didn't hurt him, just reminded him that Aurora isn't a town to trifle with." The sheriff sighed. "One of these days, your independent streak is going to land you in more trouble than even you can handle." "I've been hearing that since I was 12, Sheriff. Hasn't happened yet." Charlotte straightened her apron and headed back into her store, the bell jingling cheerfully above the door. Inside, the familiar scent of leather, coffee beans, and fresh fabric welcomed her. O'Malley's general store was the heart of Aurora, stocking everything from farming tools to fine ribbons, ammunition to medicines. Charlotte had expanded the inventory significantly since taking over, developing a keen sense for what the growing town needed. She was tallying the day's receipts when Mrs. Henderson entered, her face pinched with worry. "Charlotte, dear, have you heard? The town council is meeting tonight to discuss bringing in the railroad." Charlotte looked up from her ledger. "About time. We've been talking about it for months." "Yes, but—" Mrs. Henderson leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They're also discussing selling that vacant lot next to you, you know, the one you've been wanting for your expansion." Charlotte's fingers tightened around her pencil. "They wouldn't dare. I've made my intentions clear to Mayor Wilson." "Well, it seems a representative from the Eastern Colorado Land Company arrived yesterday. They're interested in building a hotel. Say it'll be necessary once the railroad comes through." Charlotte slammed her ledger shut. "We'll see about that." That evening, Charlotte dressed with particular care, not out of vanity, but strategy. She chose her best navy blue dress, the one that made her look both respectable and formidable. She pinned her hair in a practical yet becoming style and added her mother's cameo brooch for good measure. Looking in the mirror, she nodded with satisfaction. She appeared exactly as she intended, a successful businesswoman who commanded respect. The town hall was crowded when Charlotte arrived. Most seats were already taken by the men of Aurora, with a few of the more forward-thinking wives in attendance. Charlotte took a seat near the front, ignoring the whispers that followed her. Mayor Wilson called the meeting to order, introducing the railroad plans first. Charlotte listened carefully, making notes in her small leather-bound notebook. The proposed station would indeed bring prosperity to Aurora, potentially doubling the town's population within 5 years. "And now," Mayor Wilson announced, "we have Mr. Harrington from the Eastern Colorado Land Company to discuss a proposed hotel development." A well-dressed man in an expensive suit stood up, smiling confidently at the assembly. "Ladies and gentlemen, with the coming railroad, Aurora is poised for remarkable growth. Our company proposes a 3-story hotel with modern amenities that will attract wealthy travelers and investors to your charming town." He unfurled architectural drawings, and the crowd murmured with appreciation at the grand facade depicted. Charlotte studied the plans with a critical eye, noting that the proposed site encompassed not only the vacant lot, but also extended dangerously close to her property line. When the floor opened for questions, Charlotte was the first on her feet. "Mr. Harrington, your plans are certainly impressive," she began, her voice clear and steady. "However, I notice they encroach on land that I've already submitted a purchase offer for." The businessman's smile faltered slightly. "Ah, you must be Miss O'Malley. I've heard about your enterprise. Perhaps we could discuss a fair compensation for your interest in the property." "My interest isn't for sale," Charlotte replied firmly. "I've spent 3 years developing plans to expand O'Malley's to serve our growing community better. The railroad will bring new families who will need supplies, not just wealthy travelers passing through." Mayor Wilson cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Miss O'Malley, the council hasn't formally accepted your offer yet." "Only because you've been stalling for 4 months, Mayor," Charlotte countered. "Meanwhile, I've been improving this town, providing credit to farmers during last year's drought, organizing supply trains during the winter storms, and paying my taxes promptly." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Charlotte had earned the respect of most Aurora citizens through her fair business practices and community involvement. Mr. Harrington's condescending smile returned. "Miss O'Malley, while your little shop is doubtless adequate for current needs, progress requires vision. Perhaps running a business has become too burdensome for a woman alone. My company could make you a generous offer for your entire property." The room fell silent. Charlotte's expression didn't change, but those who knew her recognized the dangerous glint in her green eyes. "Mr. Harrington," she said, her voice deceptively soft, "my little shop grossed more last year than any business in 3 counties. I employ 5 people, extend credit to half the farms in the region, and still manage to turn a profit that allows me to reinvest in this community. I neither need nor want your generous offer. What I require is the respect due to a tax-paying business owner who has earned her place in this town." She turned to address the council directly. "Gentlemen, I welcome the railroad. I welcome progress. But not at the expense of those who have built this town with their sweat and determination. My expansion plans include storage facilities that will benefit everyone, including potential hotels just not on my doorstep." As Charlotte returned to her seat, the room erupted in discussion. She could feel Mr. Harrington's glare boring into her back, but refused to give him the satisfaction of looking his way. The meeting concluded with the council agreeing to table the land sale decision until both proposals could be properly reviewed. It wasn't a victory, but Charlotte had bought herself time. As she gathered her belongings, Sheriff Taylor approached. "Impressive speech, Miss O'Malley, though I suspect you've made yourself an enemy." Charlotte shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time. Just be careful," he warned. "Eastern money plays by different rules than we're used to out here." Outside the town hall, the spring evening had turned cool. Charlotte pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders, deep in thought as she walked back toward her store and the small apartment above it. She was so preoccupied that she didn't notice the rider approaching until he was nearly upon her. "Excuse me, madam." Charlotte looked up, startled. The man atop a magnificent buckskin horse wasn't someone she recognized. He wore practical riding clothes, worn leather chaps over denim pants, a sturdy cotton shirt, and a dust-covered cowboy hat. Unlike the slick Mr. Harrington, this man's tan suggested honest work under the sun, and his hands showed calluses of someone who didn't shy away from labor. "The general store, would that be yours?" he asked, his voice carrying a slight Texas drawl. Charlotte studied him cautiously. "It is. O'Malley's, but we're closed for the evening." The stranger smiled, revealing straight white teeth beneath his neatly trimmed beard. "I wasn't looking to shop, madam. Name's Benjamin Blackwell. I'm delivering a herd to the Patterson Ranch and heard your store might have some mail for me." "Post office function closes at 6, Charlotte replied. "You'll have to return tomorrow." Benjamin Blackwell removed his hat, revealing thick, dark hair. "I apologize for the inconvenience. I've been on the trail 3 weeks with 2,000 head of cattle, lost track of proper business hours." Something in his respectful manner softened Charlotte's reserve. 2,000. Patterson must be expanding significantly. "Yes, madam. Bought my herd from down near the Texas Panhandle. Quality stock, if I do say so." Charlotte considered him more carefully. Cattle drives were common enough, but a man owning his own sizable herd indicated success. "You're the owner, not just the trail boss," he nodded. "Been building my stock for 7 years. This sale will help me expand my own ranch back home." "Well, Mr. Blackwell, since you've come such a distance, I suppose I could check for your mail. Wait here." Charlotte unlocked her store and slipped inside. Behind the counter was the small postal station she maintained as a service to the community. She sorted through the latest delivery and found 2 letters addressed to Benjamin Blackwell. When she returned outside, he had dismounted and was waiting patiently, hat in hand. She noticed his impressive height. He must have stood at least 6 feet 2 inches. "Your luck holds, Mr. Blackwell. 2 letters." She handed them over, observing how carefully he took them with his large, weathered hands. "Much obliged, miss." "O'Malley, Charlotte O'Malley," he smiled again. "Miss O'Malley, I'm grateful for your kindness. Perhaps I could repay you by buying you dinner tomorrow evening." "I'd welcome conversation with someone other than cowboys and cattle." Charlotte's eyebrows rose in surprise. It had been some time since a man had been so direct with her. Most local men had learned she wasn't interested in courtship, and travelers typically didn't approach the formidable shopkeeper with such proposals. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Blackwell, but I'm quite busy with my business." If he was disappointed, he didn't show it. "Of course. No offense intended. I'll be in town a few days settling accounts with Patterson. Perhaps I'll see you again." "Perhaps," Charlotte nodded politely. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwell." "Good evening, Miss O'Malley." She watched him remount his horse with the easy grace of a man who'd spent most of his life in the saddle. As he rode away, Charlotte found herself oddly intrigued by the encounter. Benjamin Blackwell seemed different from the men she usually met, direct but respectful, confident without arrogance. Shaking her head at her uncharacteristic musings, Charlotte continued home. She had more important matters to consider, like how to secure her expansion plans against Eastern interlopers. The following morning, Charlotte arrived at her store earlier than usual. She needed to review her expansion proposal before presenting it to the bank for additional financing. Her current funds were sufficient for purchasing the land, but the construction would require a loan. She was surprised to find Benjamin Blackwell outside her store, leaning against a porch post with 2 steaming cups in hand. "Good morning, Miss O'Malley," he greeted her. "Thought you might appreciate some coffee. The hotel serves a decent brew." Charlotte paused, key in hand. "Mr. Blackwell, this is unexpected." "Ben, please," he offered one of the cups. "Consider it thanks for accommodating me after hours yesterday." After a moment's hesitation, Charlotte accepted the coffee. The rich aroma was tempting, and she hadn't yet brewed her own. "Thank you, Ben." She unlocked the door, feeling strangely self-conscious under his attentive gaze. "I open in 30 minutes if you need supplies." "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you about something else," he said, following her inside. "I attended the town meeting last night, arrived late, stood in the back." "Heard your speech." Charlotte set down her satchel, instantly alert. "You did?" Ben nodded, leaning against the counter while Charlotte lit the lamps. "Impressive. Not many would stand up to Eastern money like that." "It's my future at stake," she replied, moving efficiently around the store to prepare for opening. "And Aurora's. We need sustainable growth, not just pretty facades that channel profits back east." Ben sipped his coffee, watching her work. "I agree. Seen too many towns boom and bust with outside investment, but I'm curious about your expansion plans. Storage facilities you mentioned." Charlotte paused, suddenly suspicious. "Why the interest, Mr. Blackwell? Are you perhaps another investor looking for opportunity?" he chuckled. "No, madam. Just a cattleman with an interest in commerce. My family has a small ranch in Texas, but I've been expanding into other ventures, feed stores, equipment sales, looking to diversify." "Sensible," Charlotte acknowledged, her assessment of him rising slightly. "Though I'm not seeking partners." "Wasn't offering," Ben clarified. "Just curious. Most storekeepers I know are content with their standard operations. Your vision sounds more ambitious." Charlotte hesitated, then decided there was no harm in sharing the basics. "Aurora is growing. The railroad will accelerate that growth. I'm positioning to meet future demand, larger inventory, wholesale supply to outlying ranches and farms, potentially even manufacturing certain goods locally rather than importing from Chicago or St. Louis." Ben's eyes widened with interest. "Manufacturing? What sort?" "Simple items to start. Harnesses, basic furniture, preserves, maybe clothing eventually. This region has the raw materials, we just ship them east and buy back the finished goods at 10 times the price. It's wasteful." "It's smart business," Ben said, genuine admiration in his voice. "You've clearly thought this through." Charlotte felt a surprising warmth at his appreciation. Most men dismissed her ideas or tried to take credit for them. "Thank you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare to open." "Of course." Ben finished his coffee. "I've got business with the bank myself this morning. But my dinner invitation stands, Miss O'Malley. I'd enjoy hearing more about your ideas." Charlotte found herself wavering. There was something about Benjamin Blackwell's straightforward manner that appealed to her. Unlike other men who either treated her as a curiosity or tried to court her with empty flattery, he seemed genuinely interested in her mind. "Perhaps," she conceded. "I close at 7. His smile was warm. "I'll return at 7:15 then." After he left, Charlotte tried to dismiss the flutter of anticipation she felt. It was just business conversation, she told herself firmly. An exchange of ideas with a fellow entrepreneur. Nothing more. The day passed in a blur of customers and inventory. Mid-afternoon, Charlotte received an unexpected visitor, Mr. Harrington, looking considerably less polished than he had at the meeting. "Miss O'Malley," he began without preamble, "I believe we got off on the wrong foot yesterday." Charlotte continued arranging a display of canned goods. "Did we? I thought we understood each other perfectly." "Perhaps. But I've reconsidered. Your community standing is evident, and Eastern Colorado Land Company is interested in working with respected local businesses, not against them." Charlotte turned to face him fully. "How generous." And what form would this working with take? A partnership of sorts. We build the hotel, you maintain preferential supply contracts. Your expansion could proceed on a smaller scale, perhaps on another lot we could help you acquire. And in return, Harrington smiled thinly. You withdraw your claim to the adjacent lot and publicly support our hotel proposal. Charlotte didn't hesitate. No, thank you, Mr. Harrington. I don't require your assistance to expand my business, and I certainly won't surrender prime commercial property for vague promises of future consideration. The businessman's face hardened. Miss O'Malley, you may find it difficult to secure financing without our cooperation. We have considerable influence with banking institutions throughout the territory. Is that a threat? Merely an observation about business realities. A woman alone faces many challenges in the commercial world. Charlotte stepped closer, her voice low but intense. Mr. Harrington, I've been facing and overcoming business realities since I was 22. Your thinly veiled threats don't impress me. Now, unless you wish to purchase something, I'll have to ask you to leave. I have paying customers to attend to. Harrington's face flushed with anger, but he gathered himself, placing his hat precisely on his head. You'll regret this obstinacy, Miss O'Malley. Progress cannot be stopped by provincial thinking. Good day, Mr. Harrington, Charlotte replied evenly, turning back to her display. After he stormed out, Charlotte released a shaky breath. Despite her confident demeanor, she recognized the danger. Eastern Colorado Land Company had resources she couldn't match, and Harrington's implied threat against her financing was not to be taken lightly. By closing time, Charlotte had formulated a contingency plan. If the Aurora Bank proved susceptible to Harrington's influence, she would approach banks in Denver. It would be inconvenient but not insurmountable. She was reviewing her financial statements when the shop bell jingled. Looking up, she saw Benjamin Blackwell entering, freshly shaved and dressed in clean clothes, still practical but distinctly more presentable than his trail wear. "Evening, Miss O'Malley," he greeted, removing his hat. "Hope I'm not too early." Charlotte glanced at the clock. 7:12. "You're punctual, Mr. Blackwell. I'm just finishing some calculations." "Business going well?" he asked, glancing around the well-stocked store. "Well enough." Charlotte hesitated, then decided to be direct. "Though I had an unpleasant visit from Mr. Harrington today. It seems he's not above applying pressure to get his way." Ben frowned. "What kind of pressure?" "The financial kind, implying he could interfere with my loan applications." Charlotte began closing up her ledger books. "It's nothing I can't handle." "I don't doubt that," Ben said, watching her methodical movements. "But it does seem like a fight you shouldn't have to face alone." Charlotte looked up sharply. "I'm perfectly capable. I never suggested otherwise," he interrupted gently. "But even the most capable people can benefit from allies." His words gave her pause. Charlotte had been so determined to prove her independence that she sometimes rejected potential support outright. "I suppose allies could be useful," she conceded, "provided they don't try to take over." Ben's smile returned. "Not my style, Miss O'Malley. I prefer partnerships where each person contributes their strengths." Something in his tone made Charlotte study him more carefully. There was an earnestness to Benjamin Blackwell that seemed at odds with his confident exterior, a thoughtfulness she hadn't expected. "Well," she said finally, securing her cash box in the safe, "I believe you mentioned dinner. I admit I'm famished after today's events." "The hotel restaurant is supposedly the best in town," Ben suggested, then quickly added, "unless you'd prefer somewhere else, given your conflict with Harrington." "The hotel will do fine," Charlotte replied. "I won't be chased away from good food by that man. Besides, the hotel predates his company's interest. It's locally owned." They walked the short distance to Aurora's modest hotel, their conversation flowing surprisingly easily. Ben asked thoughtful questions about the town and Charlotte's business, showing genuine interest in her answers. At the restaurant, heads turned as they entered. Charlotte O'Malley rarely dined out, and never in the company of a man who wasn't a business associate or relative. The hostess showed them to a corner table, looking curiously between them. Once seated, Ben leaned forward slightly. "I believe we're causing quite a stir." Charlotte smiled despite herself. "Aurora thrives on gossip. By tomorrow we'll be engaged." "That fast?" Ben chuckled. "Efficient town you have here." "Rural efficiency," Charlotte replied dryly. "We don't waste time with lengthy courtships when there's speculation to be had." Their dinner arrived: hearty steaks with potatoes and spring vegetables. As they ate, Ben shared stories of his cattle drive, the challenges of managing a herd through changing territories, and his plans for expanding his ranch operations. "7 years ago, I had 50 head and a ramshackle cabin," he explained. "Now I've got 800 breeding stock on 2,000 acres and a proper house. Not grand, but solid." "Impressive growth," Charlotte acknowledged. "You must have worked hard." "Every day," he agreed. "Though I had help starting out. My uncle believed in me when banks wouldn't. Loaned me enough for my first real herd." "Family support can make all the difference," Charlotte said, a hint of wistfulness in her tone. "You didn't have that?" Ben asked gently. Charlotte hesitated, then decided there was no harm in sharing. "My father built O'Malley's from nothing. Taught me everything about the business from the time I could count. When he died 3 years ago, everyone expected me to sell or, at worst, maintain things exactly as they were until I found a husband to take over." "But you had other ideas," Ben prompted. "I doubled the inventory, expanded our services, and increased profits by 40% the first year," Charlotte stated without pretense. "It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. It was about honoring what my father built while creating something that was also mine." Ben nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Legacy and innovation together, that's rare." "What about you?" Charlotte asked. "Your family doesn't mind your extended absences while you drive cattle." A shadow crossed Ben's face. "No wife or children to miss me, if that's what you're asking." "My parents are gone. Have a sister back in San Antonio, married with 3 little ones. They're my only real family now." "I'm sorry," Charlotte said sincerely. "It can be lonely, can't it, building something without family to share it with?" "It can," Ben agreed. "Though I've never been one to rush into attachments just to avoid solitude. Better alone than poorly matched." "My sentiments exactly," Charlotte said, surprised by their alignment on this point. Most men she encountered seemed desperate to marry any halfway suitable woman. As they finished dessert, a remarkably good apple pie, Charlotte found herself reluctant for the evening to end. Benjamin Blackwell was unexpectedly easy to talk to, his perspectives on business refreshingly similar to her own. "Thank you for dinner," she said as they stepped outside into the cool night air. "It was more enjoyable than I anticipated." Ben smiled. "High praise indeed. Would you allow me to walk you home?" "It's only 3 buildings away," Charlotte pointed out. "Then it won't take much of your time," he countered. Charlotte nodded her agreement, and they strolled slowly along the boardwalk. The spring night was clear, stars brilliant above the small town. Few people were out at this hour, though lights spilled from the saloon down the street. "How long will you be in Aurora?" Charlotte found herself asking. "A few more days. Need to finalize the sale with Patterson, deposit the funds, arrange transportation back to Texas." Ben glanced at her. "Though I find myself considering extending my stay." Charlotte felt a warmth rise in her cheeks and was grateful for the darkness. "Aurora does have its charms." Indeed it does, Ben agreed, his gaze lingering on her face. They reached the side entrance to her building, the stairs that led to her apartment above the store. "Thank you again for dinner," Charlotte said, suddenly feeling uncharacteristically shy. "My pleasure." Ben removed his hat. "Would it be too forward to call on you tomorrow? Perhaps I could see these expansion plans of yours might have some practical suggestions from my own building experiences." Charlotte considered his offer. Normally, she would refuse such a request from a man she barely knew, but something about Benjamin Blackwell inspired trust, and his business acumen might indeed provide valuable perspective. "I close for an hour at noon," she said finally. "You could come by then." His smile was warm. "I'll be here. Good night, Miss O'Malley." "Good night, Mr. Blackwell." As Charlotte climbed the stairs to her apartment, she found herself smiling. For the first time in years, she'd enjoyed a man's company without feeling like he was either intimidated by her or trying to change her. The sensation was novel enough that she was still pondering it as she prepared for bed. The following day brought an unexpected development. When Charlotte went to the bank to discuss her loan application, Mr. Peterson, the manager, was uncharacteristically cool. "I'm afraid we'll need to reevaluate your proposal, Miss O'Malley," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Recent economic considerations have forced us to tighten our lending policies." "Recent considerations like Mr. Harrington's visit yesterday afternoon?" Charlotte asked bluntly. Peterson's startled expression confirmed her suspicion. "Aye. We must consider all major development proposals for their impact on existing loans. Mr. Peterson, my business has banked here for 20 years. My father trusted you, and until this moment I did too. My loan application is sound, my collateral substantial, and my business record impeccable." "Yes, but the scale of your proposed expansion is significant for an independent proprietor." "For a woman, you mean?" Peterson had the grace to look uncomfortable. "These aren't my personal views, Miss O'Malley, but the bank's directors have concerns about competing projects." Charlotte stood, gathering her documents with deliberate calm. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Peterson. Please inform your directors that I'll be taking my banking business to Denver, effective immediately. I'm sure they'll be interested to learn how Aurora's bank treats its established customers when Eastern money comes calling." Peterson paled. "Now, Miss O'Malley, let's not be hasty. Good day, Mr. Peterson." Charlotte left the bank, anger fueling her steps. Harrington had moved faster than she anticipated. The journey to Denver would delay her plans, but she refused to be deterred by such tactics. She was so preoccupied with formulating her next move that she nearly collided with Benjamin Blackwell outside her store. "Whoa there," he said, steadying her with gentle hands on her shoulders. "You look ready to charge through a brick wall." Charlotte took a deep breath. "My apologies. I've just come from the bank where it seems Mr. Harrington's influence has already taken effect." Ben frowned. "They refused your loan. Not officially, but they're reevaluating my application due to economic considerations." Charlotte unlocked her store door with more force than necessary. "I'll need to go to Denver." Ben followed her inside. "When were you planning to make that trip?" "As soon as possible. Perhaps tomorrow if I can arrange for my assistants to cover the store." Charlotte moved behind the counter, trying to focus on practical matters rather than her anger. "I'm heading to Denver myself day after tomorrow," Ben offered. "Need to deposit my payment from Patterson at the main territorial bank. Could combine our journeys if you'd like company on the road." Charlotte paused, considering his offer. Traveling alone as a woman, even an armed one, invited unwanted attention. Having a companion would be both safer and more pleasant, and Ben had proven himself decent company. That's a generous offer, she acknowledged. The stage takes nearly a full day each way. Actually, I have my own wagon, Ben said. More comfortable than the stage, though not quite as fast. We could leave early, reach Denver by evening, conduct our business the next day, and return the following morning. The practicality of his suggestion appealed to Charlotte. A 2-night absence. I'll need to make arrangements. Of course. Think it over. The offer stands either way. Their conversation was interrupted by customers entering the store. Charlotte nodded to Ben. Noon. I'll be back, he confirmed, donning his hat and departing. The morning passed in a rush of business and preparations. Charlotte spoke with her senior assistant, Martha, about managing the store for 2 days. By noon, when she closed for her midday break, she had decided to accept Ben's offer of traveling together. He arrived punctually, carrying a small package wrapped in brown paper. Thought you might be hungry, he explained, presenting it to her. Inside was bread, cheese, and sliced apples, a simple but thoughtful lunch. Thank you, Charlotte said, genuinely touched by the gesture. She led him to her small office at the back of the store, where her expansion plans were spread across a desk. These are impressively detailed, Ben remarked, studying the architectural drawings. Your own work, Charlotte nodded. I've always had a knack for design. My father encouraged it, said understanding the physical space was as important as understanding the inventory. Smart man. These storage solutions are clever, maximizing vertical space instead of just footprint. Ben traced a finger along one drawing. Though you might consider wider access here for wagons. Easier loading. For the next hour, they discussed practical improvements to her plans. Ben's suggestions were thoughtful and grounded in experience, never dismissive or condescending. By the time customers began knocking for the store to reopen, Charlotte had gained valuable insights. Thank you, she said sincerely. Your ideas will improve functionality significantly. Happy to help. Ben rolled up the plans carefully. Have you decided about Denver? I have. I'd appreciate traveling together if your offer still stands. Of course. I'll call for you at 5 morning after next. Early start, but it'll give us plenty of daylight. As he turned to leave, Charlotte added, Mr. Blackwell, Ben, why are you helping me? We've only just met. Ben paused, considering her question. Truthfully, I admire what you're building here, and I recognize how hard you've worked for it. Seems wrong that someone like Harrington could threaten that through underhanded tactics. His honest answer satisfied her. Thank you. I'll be ready at 5. The next day passed in a flurry of preparations. Charlotte arranged for Martha and the other assistants to manage the store, prepared documentation for Denver banks, and packed a small carpet bag with essentials for the journey. By evening, her practical arrangements were complete, but her thoughts remained unsettled. She found herself contemplating Benjamin Blackwell with unexpected frequency. His straightforward manner, his respect for her business acumen, his willingness to offer help without attempting to take control, these qualities were rare in her experience with men. Even more disconcerting was her growing awareness of him as more than just a business acquaintance. His warm smile, the thoughtful intensity in his blue eyes, the strength evident in his movements all had registered in ways that went beyond professional appreciation. Charlotte firmly pushed such thoughts aside. She had built her life around independence and self-reliance. Admiration for a man's character needn't lead to anything more complicated. They were traveling companions with mutual business interests, nothing more. At precisely 5 the next morning, a knock came at her door. Charlotte was ready, dressed in a practical traveling outfit of navy skirt and white blouse, with a warm jacket for the cool morning. Her hair was neatly pinned beneath a modest hat, and her carpet bag waited by the door. Benjamin Blackwell stood outside with a well-appointed wagon, not fancy, but sturdy and comfortable looking, with a canvas cover for protection against sun or rain. 2 strong horses were harnessed to the front, and the back contained supplies for the journey. "Good morning," Ben greeted her, taking her bag. "Ready for Denver?" "More than ready," Charlotte replied, locking her door carefully. Ben handed her up to the wagon seat with gentle courtesy, then climbed up beside her. With a click to the horses, they were off, heading east as dawn began to lighten the sky. The early morning was peaceful, the road relatively smooth as they left Aurora behind. Charlotte found herself relaxing as the familiar landscape gave way to open country. Beside her, Ben handled the team with easy confidence, occasionally pointing out wildlife or interesting features along the route. "How did you learn so much about business?" Charlotte asked as the sun rose higher. "Most ranchers I've met focus solely on their herds." Ben smiled. "My father insisted I understand more than just cattle. Sent me to school in St. Louis for 2 years when I was 16. Hated it at first, felt trapped indoors after growing up on horseback. But the mathematics and economics eventually caught my interest." "That explains your insightful comments on my expansion plans." "Practical experience too," Ben added. "Built most of my ranch buildings myself. Learn quickly what works and what doesn't when you're the one hammering the nails." Their conversation flowed easily throughout the morning. They stopped briefly at midday to rest the horses and eat the lunch Ben had packed: cold chicken, biscuits, and preserves. "Tell me about your family," Ben requested as they sat in the shade of a large cottonwood. "You mentioned your father taught you the business." Charlotte nodded. "Patrick O'Malley. Came west after the war with nothing but determination and a wagon of trade goods. Built the store from a tent to a proper building. My mother died when I was 14, influenza. After that, it was just father and me." "He must have been proud of what you've accomplished," Ben said quietly. "I hope so." Charlotte smiled at the memory. "He always said I had a better head for figures than he did. Never treated me differently for being a girl, expected me to learn everything from ordering stock to fixing the roof." "Wise man. What about your parents?" Charlotte asked. "You mentioned they're gone." A shadow crossed Ben's face. "Lost them both 6 years ago. Fever swept through our area. My father held on longest, made me promise to keep building what he'd started." He was quiet for a moment. "That's why this cattle sale matters so much. It's the culmination of his dream, enough capital now to truly expand." Charlotte recognized the mix of grief and determination in his voice. She'd felt the same after her father's passing. "We carry them with us in what we build." Ben met her eyes, surprise and understanding mingling in his gaze. "Yes, exactly that." They resumed their journey with a new level of understanding between them. As afternoon stretched toward evening, the terrain became more populated, farms and small settlements appearing more frequently as they approached Denver. "Should reach the city within the hour," Ben noted, glancing at the sun's position. "Have you arranged accommodations?" Charlotte asked, suddenly realizing this detail hadn't been discussed. "Brown Palace Hotel has rooms reserved for us," Ben replied. "Separate, of course," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "I took the liberty yesterday of sending a telegram ahead. Hope that wasn't presumptuous." Charlotte relaxed. "No, that was thoughtful. The Brown Palace is renowned for its respectability. Thought you'd prefer somewhere proper, given your position in Aurora." Ben adjusted the reins slightly. "I've stayed in enough trail camps and rough establishments to appreciate comfort when it's available." By dusk, they were entering Denver's bustling streets. The territorial capital was dramatically larger than Aurora, with multi-story buildings, gaslit streets, and a constant flow of traffic. Charlotte felt a familiar excitement at the city's energy, though she preferred Aurora's more manageable pace for daily life. The Brown Palace Hotel lived up to its reputation for elegance. The desk clerk greeted them with formal courtesy, assigning them rooms on different floors as propriety demanded. A porter carried Charlotte's bag, and Ben promised to meet her for dinner in an hour. Alone in her well-appointed room, Charlotte took advantage of the luxury of hot running water to refresh herself after the dusty journey. She changed into her second-best dress, a forest green that complemented her auburn hair and repinned her hair into a more sophisticated arrangement. Looking in the mirror, Charlotte paused, realizing she was taking more care with her appearance than usual. The awareness brought a flush to her cheeks. Was she trying to impress Benjamin Blackwell? The thought was unsettling. Charlotte O'Malley didn't primp for men. Yet she couldn't deny a certain anticipation at the prospect of dining with him in these refined surroundings. Ben was waiting in the lobby when she descended, and the appreciation in his eyes as he saw her sent an unexpected warmth through her. He too had changed, wearing a well-tailored suit that transformed the rugged cattleman into a surprisingly sophisticated gentleman. "Miss O'Malley," he greeted her, offering his arm. "You look lovely." "Thank you," Charlotte replied, accepting his arm with only slight hesitation. "You clean up rather well yourself, Mr. Blackwell." His smile was warm. "Benefits of city accommodations. The hotel restaurant is supposedly excellent. Dinner proved indeed exceptional, with fine food and attentive service." Their conversation ranged widely, from business matters to books they'd enjoyed, politics to personal philosophies. Charlotte found herself repeatedly surprised by Ben's thoughtful perspectives and genuine interest in her opinions. "Most men don't ask what I think about territorial politics," she noted after a particularly engaging discussion about Colorado's path to statehood. Ben looked genuinely puzzled. "Why wouldn't they? You run a successful business, interact with all segments of society, and clearly follow current events. Your perspective would be valuable." The simple logic of his statement struck Charlotte forcefully. Throughout her adult life, men had either dismissed her views entirely or treated them as charming novelties. Ben's matter-of-fact respect for her intelligence was refreshingly different. As dinner concluded, Ben suggested a brief walk before retiring. "Denver's Main Street is well lit and quite safe at this hour. Might help settle the meal before sleep." The evening was pleasant, with a gentle breeze carrying the mixed scents of the city. As they strolled along the gaslit street, Charlotte found herself more aware of Ben's physical presence beside her, his height, the careful way he positioned himself between her and the street, the occasional brush of his arm against hers. "Your appointments tomorrow, what time do they begin?" he asked as they turned back toward the hotel. 9 o'clock at First National Bank," Charlotte replied. "Then Colorado Territorial Bank at 11 if the first meeting doesn't prove fruitful." "Similar to my schedule. Perhaps we could meet for lunch afterward. Compare notes on our respective successes." "I'd like that," Charlotte said, realizing she meant it sincerely. At the hotel, Ben escorted her to the foot of the stairs leading to her floor. "Rest well, Charlotte," he said, using her given name for the first time. "Tomorrow you'll show Denver's bankers what Aurora already knows, that you're a force to be reckoned with." His confidence in her brought a genuine smile to her face. "Thank you, Ben, for everything." His eyes held hers for a moment longer than strictly necessary. "Good night." "Good night." In her room, Charlotte prepared for bed with her mind unusually full. The journey, the upcoming bank meetings, and most persistently, Benjamin Blackwell himself occupied her thoughts. She had built her life around self-reliance, yet his support felt not like an encroachment on her independence, but like a genuine alliance. The realization was both comforting and unsettling as she drifted into sleep. Morning brought renewed focus on the day's business objectives. Charlotte dressed in her most professional attire, a tailored navy suit with a crisp white blouse, and reviewed her financial documents one final time before heading downstairs. Ben was already in the dining room, reading a newspaper over coffee. He looked up as she entered, his smile warm. "Ready to conquer Denver's financial institutions?" "Absolutely," Charlotte replied, taking a seat as a waiter appeared with coffee. They ate breakfast efficiently, discussing strategy for their respective meetings. As they prepared to part ways in the hotel lobby, Ben surprised her by taking her hand briefly. "Good luck today, though I doubt you'll need it. Your preparation and determination are formidable assets." His touch was warm and reassuring, and Charlotte found herself momentarily flustered. "Thank you. I hope your banking goes equally well." First National Bank of Denver occupied an imposing stone building on a corner of the main street. Charlotte entered with confidence, requesting a meeting with the loan manager. Her appearance, a well-dressed woman requesting business financing, clearly surprised the staff, but her professional demeanor and complete documentation soon overcame initial skepticism. "Your proposal is certainly thorough, Miss O'Malley," Mr. Richardson, the loan manager, acknowledged after reviewing her materials. "Expansion of an established business with proven profitability is generally the type of investment we favor." "I've included 3 years of financial statements," Charlotte pointed out. "You'll note consistent growth each quarter." Richardson nodded, studying the figures. "Indeed. May I ask why you're seeking financing in Denver rather than locally? Aurora has a reputable bank." Charlotte had prepared for this question. Aurora's bank is experiencing competing demands on its capital with several development proposals currently under consideration. I preferred not to delay my expansion plans. It wasn't the whole truth, but it was diplomatic. No need to explain Harrington's interference until necessary. Richardson seemed satisfied. "Your collateral is solid, your business record impressive. Subject to final approval from the board, I believe we can accommodate your loan request at favorable terms." Relief flooded through Charlotte, though she maintained her professional composure. "That's excellent news. When might I expect the board's decision?" "We convene tomorrow morning. I could have an answer for you by noon. Would that timing work with your plans?" "Perfectly," Charlotte confirmed. "I intended to return to Aurora tomorrow afternoon." With preliminaries agreed upon, Charlotte signed the necessary application documents and provided additional references. By the time she left First National, it was nearly 11, making her second appointment unnecessary. Feeling triumphant, Charlotte decided to explore some of Denver's shops before meeting Ben for lunch. She needed supplies that were difficult to obtain in Aurora, and the opportunity to see the latest merchandise would benefit her store inventory decisions. At 12:30, Charlotte arrived at the restaurant they'd agreed upon, a pleasant establishment near the banks that catered to business clientele. Ben was already seated at a corner table, his expression brightening when he saw her. "Success?" he asked as she joined him. Charlotte allowed herself a satisfied smile. "Provisional approval, pending board confirmation tomorrow, at terms better than Aurora's bank initially offered." "Congratulations." Ben's pleasure in her achievement seemed entirely genuine. "I knew they'd recognize a sound investment." "And your transaction completed smoothly. Funds deposited with a portion transferred to my bank in Texas." Ben looked pleased. 3 years of work culminating in financial security for the ranch's future. They ordered lunch, both buoyed by their respective successes. Charlotte found herself sharing more detailed plans for her expansion than she'd revealed to anyone previously, encouraged by Ben's insightful questions and supportive comments. "The manufacturing aspect particularly interests me," Ben said as they finished their meal. "Creates opportunities beyond just retail." "Exactly," Charlotte agreed eagerly. "Every shipment of goods from the East represents profit leaving our community. Local production keeps more wealth circulating here, creates jobs, and eventually attracts more settlement." "Building something sustainable," Ben nodded. "Not just exploiting resources and moving on. Precisely my thinking." Charlotte studied him curiously. "You understand my vision more readily than most. Even those who support my business often see it merely as a successful store, not part of broader economic development." Ben's expression turned thoughtful. "Perhaps because I'm building something similar, just in a different sector. A ranch isn't just cattle, it's land management, employment, supply chains, market relationships, all interconnected." Their conversation continued as they left the restaurant, wandering through Denver's commercial district. Charlotte found herself thoroughly enjoying Ben's company, their discussions ranging from practical business matters to more philosophical considerations about the West's development. "What will you do with the rest of your afternoon?" Ben asked as they paused near a park. "I need to select some merchandise to ship back to Aurora, items difficult to obtain through my usual suppliers. Mind if I accompany you? My business is concluded, and I find your approach to inventory selection educational." Charlotte hesitated only briefly. Normally, she guarded her purchasing decisions carefully, they were key to her competitive edge, but she found herself trusting Ben's interest as genuine rather than competitive. "I'd welcome your perspective," she decided, "particularly on items that might appeal to ranchers. That segment of my customer base could grow significantly with the right inventory." They spent a pleasant afternoon visiting Denver's wholesale warehouses and specialty shops. Ben proved a knowledgeable companion, offering insights on tools and equipment that Charlotte might not have considered. By late afternoon, she had arranged shipments of several promising product lines and gained valuable market intelligence. "Thank you," she said sincerely as they walked back toward the hotel. "Your suggestions about the new harness designs were particularly helpful. I wouldn't have recognized the advantages of that buckle system." "My pleasure," Ben replied. "Though I believe I'm the one who's learned more today. Your negotiating skills are remarkable. You secured prices I wouldn't have thought possible." Charlotte smiled. "Volume commitments and prompt payment make significant differences. Most wholesalers are accustomed to buyers who haggle without understanding the supplier's constraints. Mutual benefit rather than adversarial bargaining." Ben nodded. "Sustainable business practice." At the hotel, they agreed to dine again together that evening. Charlotte found herself looking forward to it with unexpected eagerness as she returned to her room to refresh herself. Dinner that night had a celebratory quality, with both of them satisfied with their day's achievements. The conversation flowed easily, increasingly personal as the evening progressed. Charlotte found herself sharing stories from her childhood, memories of her father, dreams for her future that she rarely articulated even to herself. "Have you never considered marriage?" Ben asked as they lingered over dessert. "Given your success, you must have had suitors." Charlotte considered her answer carefully. "A few. Most wanted me to sell the store or reduce my involvement to something more decorative. Those who claimed to admire my business acumen still expected me to prioritize domestic responsibilities once married. And that didn't appeal. I watched my mother maintain our home and help in the store, while my father received all the credit for their joint success," Charlotte said quietly. She was brilliant with customers, had an eye for trends that my father lacked, kept meticulous records, yet was considered merely supportive rather than essential. I decided early that if marriage meant subordinating my talents and ambitions to a husband's reputation, I'd rather remain independent. Ben nodded thoughtfully. A reasonable position, given your observations, though perhaps not all marriages must follow that pattern. Perhaps not, Charlotte acknowledged, but finding a man who truly believes in equal partnership rather than merely claiming to when convenient. That seems unlikely. What about you? No ranch wife waiting in Texas. A shadow crossed Ben's face. There was someone years ago, Emily. We planned to marry once I established the ranch properly. He paused. She died during the same fever that took my parents. I'm sorry, Charlotte said softly, understanding the depth of loss behind his simple statement. It was a long time ago, Ben replied. Though it changed my perspective on many things, made me value authenticity in relationships above conventional expectations. As they walked back to the hotel in the cool evening, Charlotte found herself unusually aware of Ben's presence beside her, the gentle strength in his hand when he helped her across a street, the warmth in his eyes when she spoke, the careful attention he paid to her comfort and safety without being overbearing. At the hotel staircase they paused. "What time shall we depart tomorrow?" Charlotte asked, suddenly conscious of their impending return to Aurora and what that might mean for whatever this connection between them was becoming. "Perhaps 10, Ben suggested. "That gives you time to receive confirmation from the bank and we'll still reach Aurora before dark." "Perfect." Charlotte hesitated, then added, "Thank you for today, Ben. Not just the practical assistance, but the conversation. It's been refreshing." In the soft lamplight of the hotel lobby, Ben's expression was warm. "For me as well, Charlotte, more than you might realize." There was a moment, brief but electric, when Charlotte thought he might move closer, perhaps take her hand or even. But the moment passed as a hotel clerk approached with a message for another guest. "Good night, then," Charlotte said, suddenly feeling uncharacteristically shy. "Sleep well." Ben's voice was gentle. "Until tomorrow." In her room, Charlotte found herself standing at the window, looking out at Denver's nighttime skyline without really seeing it. Her thoughts were filled with Benjamin Blackwell, his intelligence, his respect for her ambitions, his quiet strength. Was she developing feelings for him? The possibility was both exhilarating and terrifying. Charlotte had built her identity around independence. The prospect of emotional attachment to a man, especially one who would eventually return to Texas, threatened the careful structure of her life. Yet she couldn't deny the connection forming between them, stronger than any she'd experienced before. Morning brought practical matters back into focus. Charlotte dressed efficiently, packed her bag, and went to collect the bank's decision. As expected, the loan was approved on favorable terms. With signed documents securing her expansion financing, Charlotte felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Whatever Harrington and his Eastern Colorado Land Company attempted, her plans were now protected. Ben was waiting with the wagon when she returned to the hotel, her satisfaction evident in her smile. "Good news confirmed?" he asked, helping her up to the seat. "Excellent news. Full approval at 4% interest over 5 years. Charlotte settled her skirts. "Significantly better than Aurora Bank's preliminary offer. Congratulations." Ben climbed up beside her, taking the reins. "A well-deserved victory." As they left Denver behind, Charlotte found herself both content with her business success and increasingly aware of the limited time remaining in Ben's company. Their journey back to Aurora would take most of the day, and then what? He would continue his preparations to return to Texas, and she would proceed with her expansion plans. Their paths had crossed briefly and productively, but they led in different directions. The thought brought an unexpected pang of regret. Their conversation during the return journey was comfortable, but punctuated by longer silences than before, as if both were contemplating the imminent conclusion of their time together. The familiar landscape passed, beautiful in the spring sunshine but tinged with a melancholy Charlotte hadn't anticipated. Midway through their journey, they stopped for lunch in a pleasant meadow beside a small stream. Ben spread a blanket in the shade of cottonwood trees and produced bread, cheese, and dried fruit from his provisions. "You think of everything," Charlotte commented as they settled on the blanket. "Trail habits," Ben replied with a smile. "Planning ahead becomes second nature when you've experienced going hungry, because you didn't." They ate in companionable silence for a while, the stream's gentle murmur and birdsong the only sounds. Charlotte found herself studying Ben's profile when he wasn't looking, the strong line of his jaw, the weathered tan that spoke of outdoor work, the thoughtfulness in his blue eyes. "When will you return to Texas?" she asked finally, voicing the question that had been foremost in her mind. Ben glanced at her. "My original plan was to leave in 3 days, but, Charlotte prompted when he didn't continue. He turned to face her fully. "Charlotte, I find myself reluctant to depart so soon." Her heart quickened at his words and the intensity in his gaze. "Oh, these past days with you have been unexpected. I came to Aurora for a business transaction and found something I wasn't looking for." Ben hesitated. "Someone I wasn't looking for." Charlotte felt warmth rising in her cheeks. "Ben, please let me finish," he said gently. "I admire you, Charlotte O'Malley. Your intelligence, your determination, your vision for your business and community. I've never met anyone quite like you, man or woman." His sincerity was unmistakable, his gaze direct and honest. Charlotte found herself at a rare loss for words. "I'm not proposing marriage or declaring undying love," Ben continued with a slight smile. "We've known each other less than a week, but I am asking if you might consider allowing me to extend my stay in Aurora, to explore whatever this connection between us might become." Charlotte looked down at her hands, mind racing. Part of her wanted to retreat behind her carefully constructed wall of independence, to thank him politely but firmly explain that romance had no place in her meticulously planned life. But another part, one she rarely acknowledged, recognized something rare and valuable in what Ben offered: respect without conditions, admiration without expectation, possibility without pressure. "I'm not looking for a husband," she said finally, meeting his eyes. "I've built my life around self-reliance and I won't abandon that." Ben nodded, his expression serious. "I understand and respect that. I'm not asking you to change who you are or what you've built." "What are you asking then?" "For time, opportunity. To see if there might be something between us worth exploring, something that enhances rather than diminishes what each of us has created individually." He smiled slightly. "I'm not looking to rescue an independent woman, Charlotte. But I do believe that independence and connection aren't mutually exclusive." Charlotte considered his words carefully. "And your ranch in Texas, your plans there. Important to me, yes, but not immutable. Life has taught me that flexibility sometimes yields unexpected rewards." Ben's gaze was steady. "I'm not asking for promises or commitments, just openness to possibility." The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within Charlotte. Throughout her adult life, she'd rejected suitors because they wanted to change her, to fit her into conventional expectations of womanhood. Ben was offering something different: acceptance of who she was, respect for what she'd built, and exploration of what they might create together without predetermined boundaries. "I can't promise anything," she said finally. My store, my expansion plans, they remain my priorities. As they should be, Ben agreed. Charlotte took a deep breath. But yes, I would like you to extend your stay to explore possibilities. The smile that illuminated Ben's face made her heart flutter in a most disconcerting way. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but sure. That's all I ask, he said softly. Possibility. They finished their lunch and resumed their journey, the atmosphere between them charged with new awareness. Their conversation flowed easily again, but with an undercurrent of anticipation that hadn't been present before. Aurora came into view late in the afternoon, the familiar buildings bathed in golden light. As they drove down the main street, Charlotte noticed unusual activity around the vacant lot next to her store workers taking measurements, a surveyor with equipment. What's happening there? Ben asked, noticing her sudden alertness. I'm not certain, but I intend to find out, Charlotte replied, her business concerns immediately resurfacing. They stopped first at Charlotte's store. Martha came out immediately, relief evident on her face. Miss O'Malley, thank goodness you're back. That Eastern gentleman has been making quite a commotion. Harrington, Charlotte descended from the wagon. What's he done? Brought in surveyors yesterday, talking about beginning construction next week. Says he has town council approval, though Mayor Wilson seems confused about when that happened. Martha lowered her voice. And there's been men from his company examining your building's foundation wall where it adjoins the lot. Charlotte's expression hardened. Has he indeed? Well, we'll see about that. Ben had joined them, listening carefully. Sounds like he's trying to force the issue while you were away. A common tactic, Charlotte agreed grimly. Create apparent momentum to pressure opposition into surrender. She turned to Martha. Did we have any important customers I should follow up with? Everything's recorded in the ledger, but nothing urgent. We managed well enough. Martha glanced curiously between Charlotte and Ben. Your journey was successful. Very. Charlotte smiled briefly. Martha, this is Mr. Benjamin Blackwell. Ben, my assistant manager, Martha Wilson. Ben tipped his hat politely. Madam, your employer speaks highly of your capabilities. Martha beamed at the compliment. Well, someone has to mind the store when she's off fighting banking institutions. And now I need to fight town councils, it seems, Charlotte said, her determination evident. Martha, would you mind closing up tonight? I need to speak with Mayor Wilson immediately. Of course, Miss O'Malley. Martha hesitated. There's one more thing. Mr. Harrington was asking about your bank arrangements. Seemed mighty interested in whether you'd secured alternative financing. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. Did he indeed? Well, he'll learn soon enough. She turned to Ben. I need to address this immediately. Would you? I'll stable the horses and bring your bag to you later, Ben offered, understanding her urgency. Go do what you need to. Charlotte nodded gratefully. Thank you for everything. Their eyes held for a moment, mutual understanding passing between them. Then Charlotte squared her shoulders and marched toward the mayor's office, every inch the businesswoman defending her territory. Mayor Wilson was clearly uncomfortable when his secretary showed Charlotte into his office. He shuffled papers nervously, avoiding her direct gaze. Miss O'Malley, welcome back. I trust your journey to Denver was pleasant. Extremely productive, Charlotte replied, taking a seat without waiting for invitation. Though I return to find Mr. Harrington's surveyors on land that is still under consideration by the town council. Land that I have made a formal offer to purchase. Wilson cleared his throat. Yes, well, about that. The council felt that the hotel proposal represented significant economic opportunity for Aurora. The council made no such decision, Charlotte interrupted firmly. I checked the meeting schedule before departing. No session was scheduled during my absence. The mayor's discomfort increased visibly. An emergency session, given the railroad's accelerated timeline, without public notice, without all interested parties present. Charlotte leaned forward. Mayor Wilson, that would violate at least 3 town ordinances, as you well know. Wilson's shoulders slumped slightly. Harrington is very persuasive, Miss O'Malley. His company has significant resources, connections to the territorial governor. And I have secured full financing for my expansion, documentation of my prior claim to the property, and enough knowledge of territorial law to challenge any improper council decision in Denver courts if necessary. Charlotte's tone was steel wrapped in silk. Do you really want Aurora's reputation tarnished by such a legal battle, especially when the railroad is considering us as a major stop? The threat landed precisely as intended. Wilson paled slightly. You secured financing in Denver, full approval, excellent terms. Charlotte allowed herself a small smile. My expansion will proceed, Mayor. The only question is whether it happens with the town council's cooperation or despite its obstruction. Miss O'Malley, please understand the difficult position. I understand perfectly. Mr. Harrington offered personal incentives to council members to circumvent proper procedures. I'm not interested in exposing those details unless forced to. Charlotte softened her tone slightly. Mayor, we both want Aurora to prosper. My expansion creates permanent local jobs, keeps profits circulating in our community, and supports the families who have built this town. Harrington's hotel will certainly bring visitors, but most profits will flow east, and the jobs created will be seasonal and low-paying. Wilson sighed, the fight leaving him. What do you propose? A properly scheduled council meeting, full public disclosure of both proposals, fair consideration with all parties present. Charlotte stood. And in the meantime, Mr. Harrington's surveyors vacate that property immediately. It remains town land until formally sold. That seems reasonable, Wilson conceded. I thought you might agree. Charlotte moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Mayor. If I discover any damage or interference with my building's foundation wall, I'll hold the town liable for permitting unauthorized access. With that parting shot, Charlotte left the mayor's office, satisfaction tempering her anger. As she stepped onto the boardwalk, she spotted Ben across the street speaking with Sheriff Taylor. He saw her and excused himself, crossing to join her. Victory? He asked, noting her expression. Opening skirmish, Charlotte replied. The mayor has been reminded of proper procedures. We'll see if it holds. Ben fell into step beside her as they walked toward her store. Your bag is inside. Martha suggested you might appreciate a dinner invitation after your confrontation with the mayor. Charlotte smiled despite her lingering frustration. Martha is perceptive. Dinner would be welcome, though I should check on a few things at the store first. Take your time. I'll wait. Inside O'Malley's, Charlotte quickly reviewed the ledgers and correspondence that had accumulated during her absence. Everything was in order. Martha was indeed efficient. After freshening up in her apartment and changing into a clean dress, Charlotte rejoined Ben, who was examining a display of new fishing equipment with genuine interest. Patterson mentioned you carry the best tackle in the county, he commented as she approached. He wasn't exaggerating. I import directly from manufacturers rather than through middlemen, Charlotte explained. Allows for better quality at competitive prices. They walked to the hotel restaurant, Charlotte acknowledging greetings from townspeople along the way. She was acutely aware of the curious glances directed at Ben beside her, knowing that Aurora's gossip network would be working overtime by morning. Over dinner, Charlotte outlined her confrontation with Mayor Wilson. Ben listened attentively, offering occasional strategic suggestions that demonstrated his understanding of both business tactics and human nature. Harrington won't give up easily, he noted as they finished their meal. Men like that see opposition as personal challenge rather than business reality. I'm counting on it, Charlotte replied with unexpected satisfaction. His aggressive tactics give me legal grounds to challenge any council decision that favors him. And now that my financing is secure, I have leverage he didn't anticipate. Ben smiled. You're formidable when defending your territory. Always have been. Charlotte met his gaze directly. It's how I've survived and thrived in a world that expects women to be decorative rather than decisive. I admire it, Ben said simply. Though I imagine it's been a lonely path at times, the observation, made without judgment or pity, touched something vulnerable in Charlotte. Yes, she admitted quietly, it has been. They walked slowly back toward her store in the gathering twilight, their conversation turning to lighter topics. At her door, they paused. Thank you for everything these past days, Charlotte said. The journey, the advice, the understanding. Ben removed his hat, holding it before him. My pleasure, truly, he hesitated. May I call on you tomorrow, perhaps after church? Charlotte felt a flutter of anticipation. I'd like that. Good night then, Charlotte. Ben's smile was warm in the soft lamplight from the street. Good night, Ben. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Charlotte found herself smiling despite the challenges that awaited her. For the first time in years, she was considering possibilities beyond business success, possibilities that included sharing her thoughts, her dreams, perhaps even her life with someone who valued her exactly as she was. The following morning brought evidence of Harrington's continued machinations. A formal notice appeared on the town bulletin board announcing a special council meeting in 2 days to finalize disposition of municipal property adjacent to O'Malley's general store. Charlotte tore down the notice and marched directly to Sheriff Taylor's office, Ben accompanying her after witnessing her discovery. This is blatantly improper, Charlotte declared, slapping the notice on the sheriff's desk. No public announcement was made, no agenda published in advance as required by town charter. Sheriff Taylor sighed heavily. I know, Charlotte. Harrington's got half the council believing his hotel will transform Aurora into a tourist destination overnight. And the other half, Ben inquired. Worried about crossing Charlotte, the sheriff admitted with a slight smile. Your reputation for determination precedes you, Miss O'Malley. Then use your authority to insist on proper procedures, Charlotte demanded. You're sworn to uphold town ordinances as well as territorial law. Sheriff Taylor nodded slowly. You're right, of course. I'll speak with the mayor immediately. This meeting can't proceed without proper notice. Thank you, Sheriff. Charlotte's expression softened slightly. I don't oppose progress or even a hotel eventually. I simply insist on fair treatment and respect for established businesses. Understood. The sheriff rose. I'll handle this, though Harrington won't be pleased. His pleasure is not my concern, Charlotte replied crisply. Outside the sheriff's office, Ben gently touched Charlotte's elbow. Impressive. You navigate small-town politics with remarkable skill, Charlotte smiled. Necessary survival skill for a businesswoman. Now shall we attend church? I find my spiritual needs are particularly acute when dealing with men like Harrington. The Aurora Community Church was nearly full when they arrived. Charlotte was a regular attendant, though more from community obligation than deep religious conviction. She noted with satisfaction that her arrival with Ben caused a ripple of interested murmurs through the congregation. Reverend Miller's sermon focused appropriately on integrity in business dealings, with several pointed references to outsiders who valued profit above community welfare. Charlotte caught Ben's amused glance when the Reverend emphasized the importance of supporting local enterprise. After the service, Charlotte performed her usual round of social greetings, introducing Ben to various townspeople. His easy manner and respectful attention to even the oldest residents impressed her. Unlike many visitors, he showed genuine interest in Aurora and its citizens. "Miss O'Malley, Mrs. Henderson approached, her expression eager. "Such a handsome gentleman friend you've found. Will he be staying in Aurora long?" Charlotte suppressed a smile at the transparent fishing for information. "Mr. Blackwell is considering extending his business interests in our region." "How wonderful!" Mrs. Henderson beamed. "And might those interests include more personal considerations?" "Martha," Charlotte replied firmly, "Mr. Blackwell and I have mutual respect for each other's business acumen. Beyond that, I couldn't possibly comment." Ben, rejoining them after speaking with Reverend Miller, caught the end of this exchange. "Though I find Aurora increasingly attractive the longer I stay," he added with a warm smile at Charlotte. Mrs. Henderson practically glowed with the implications of this statement. "Well, we must have you both for dinner soon. Perhaps Wednesday." Before Charlotte could formulate a polite refusal, Ben accepted graciously. "We would be delighted, wouldn't we, Miss O'Malley?" Trapped by social convention, Charlotte nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson." As they walked away, Charlotte murmured, "You realize you've just guaranteed that half the town will be speculating about wedding dates by sunset." Ben chuckled. "Would that be so terrible?" "Ben," Charlotte stopped short, staring at him. "We agreed to explore possibilities, not fuel gossip about imminent matrimony." His expression softened. "I apologize if I overstepped. I only meant that I enjoy your company and don't mind others knowing it." Charlotte resumed walking, slightly mollified. "It's just, my reputation for independence is important to my business standing. I can't have people thinking I'm suddenly seeking a husband to take over." "I understand." Ben's voice was sincere. "And I would never want to undermine the respect you've earned. What if we present ourselves as business associates exploring potential commercial collaboration? That's truthful without feeding romantic speculation." Charlotte considered this approach. That might work. Though in a town this size, close association of any kind between an unmarried woman and man inevitably sparks talk. "Then perhaps we simply proceed, as we intend getting to know each other better while maintaining our respective independence." Ben smiled. "Let Aurora speculate as it will. Our actions over time will speak louder than gossip." His practical perspective eased Charlotte's concern. "You're right, of course. I'm perhaps oversensitive after years of defending my autonomy." "Understandably so." Ben offered his arm as they reached the restaurant where they planned to dine. "Shall we discuss strategy for countering Harrington's next move over lunch?" The meal was enjoyable, their conversation flowing easily between business matters and more personal topics. Charlotte found herself increasingly comfortable sharing her thoughts with Ben, appreciating his insights and the respect with which he treated her opinions. After lunch, they walked to the edge of town where Charlotte's expansion would extend. Standing on the vacant lot, she described her vision in detail: the additional storage space, workrooms for local craftspeople to produce goods for the store, improved loading facilities for supplying outlying ranches and farms. "It's impressive," Ben said sincerely when she finished. "Far more beneficial to Aurora's long-term prosperity than a hotel catering to transient visitors." "That's what I've been trying to explain to the council," Charlotte agreed. "A hotel has its place, but not at the expense of infrastructure that supports permanent residence and sustainable growth." Ben was quiet for a moment, studying the space thoughtfully. "Have you considered a compromise position?" "What do you mean?" What if your expansion included lodging facilities on an upper floor? Not a full hotel, but quality accommodations that would serve business travelers and visitors once the railroad arrives. Ben gestured toward the main street. The current hotel is pleasant enough but limited. You could address a genuine need while maintaining control of the property. Charlotte stared at him, mind racing with the implications. That's actually brilliant. The additional construction cost would be manageable with my approved financing, and the rental income would offset the loan payments substantially. Plus, it undercuts Harrington's primary argument about Aurora's need for additional accommodations, Ben pointed out. If your expansion already includes that function, his hotel becomes redundant. Charlotte impulsively grasped his hand. Ben, that's perfect. I need to revise my plans immediately. He smiled, squeezing her hand gently. Happy to contribute. Two minds often find solutions one might miss. The simple truth of his statement struck Charlotte forcefully. Throughout her independent business career, she had prided herself on solving problems alone, seeing collaboration as potential vulnerability. Yet here was evidence that the right partnership, could enhance rather than diminish her effectiveness. They spent the afternoon in Charlotte's office, modifying her expansion plans to include the lodging component. Ben's practical building experience proved valuable as they redesigned the upper floor, his suggestions for efficient layouts and traveler amenities particularly insightful. By evening, they had created a compelling revised proposal that maintained Charlotte's original vision while incorporating accommodation facilities that would serve Aurora's growing needs. This is stronger than my initial plan, Charlotte acknowledged as they reviewed the final drawings. The integration of multiple functions creates synergies I hadn't fully considered. It's still fundamentally your vision, Ben emphasized. I've only suggested refinements based on what I've seen work elsewhere. Charlotte studied him thoughtfully. You have a gift for enhancing ideas without attempting to take ownership of them. That's rare. Perhaps because I understand the value of respecting another person's creation, Ben replied. My father taught me that true collaboration requires recognizing and honoring each person's contribution, not subsuming one to another. Wise man, your father. He would have admired you greatly, Ben said quietly. As I do. The simple sincerity of his statement touched Charlotte deeply. In the intimate space of her office, with evening shadows gathering and the plans they had created together spread before them, she felt a powerful connection to this man who saw her strength as attractive rather than threatening. Ben, she began, uncertain how to express the complex emotions stirring within her. Before she could continue, a commotion outside drew their attention. Voices raised in argument, then the distinct sound of breaking glass. What on earth? Charlotte moved quickly to the window, Ben following. In the street below, a group of men were confronting each other, several local citizens facing off against strangers who, judging by their clothing, worked for Harrington's company. Sheriff Taylor was attempting to separate the groups. We should see what's happening, Charlotte said, already moving toward the door. Outside, the situation was tense but contained. Sheriff Taylor had positioned himself between the opposing groups, his hand resting meaningfully on his holstered pistol. What's going on, Sheriff? Charlotte asked, approaching cautiously. Miss O'Malley, Taylor acknowledged her. Seems Mr. Harrington's men took it upon themselves to begin preliminary work on the vacant lot. When Mr. Peterson objected that the land hadn't been officially sold yet, things got heated. Charlotte surveyed the scene. A broken surveying instrument lay on the ground, the source of the breaking glass they'd heard. Several stakes had been driven into the ground, marking foundation corners for a building that had no right to exist yet. Those stakes are placed illegally, Charlotte stated firmly. The town council has made no final disposition of that property, as the sheriff can confirm. One of Harrington's men stepped forward, a foreman by his manner. We have authorization from Eastern Colorado Land Company to prepare the site for construction. Eastern Colorado Land Company doesn't own this land, Ben interjected, his voice calm but carrying authority. The town of Aurora does. Until legal transfer of ownership occurs, you're trespassing. The foreman eyed Ben suspiciously. And who might you be? Benjamin Blackwell, concerned citizen and business owner with an interest in proper legal procedures. Sheriff Taylor nodded. He's right, Johnson. The lot remains town property until formal vote and transfer of deed. Your men need to remove those stakes and cease operations until proper authorization exists. The foreman looked rebellious for a moment, then apparently thought better of challenging the sheriff directly. Fine. We'll pull the stakes, but Mr. Harrington won't be pleased. Mr. Harrington's pleasure is not our primary concern, Charlotte replied. The proper functioning of town governance is. As Harrington's men reluctantly began removing their equipment, Ben placed a gentle hand on Charlotte's shoulder. Well handled. Direct, but not inflammatory. Charlotte smiled up at him, aware of the townspeople watching their interaction with interest. I found that firm adherence to legal process is more effective than emotional confrontation. Indeed. Ben's hand lingered slightly longer than strictly necessary. Though I suspect this is merely the opening move in Harrington's campaign. Charlotte nodded grimly. Undoubtedly, which is why we need to present our revised plan to the council as soon as possible. Sheriff Taylor approached them as the crowd began to disperse. Miss O'Malley, you should know that Harrington's been meeting privately with council members, claims to have territorial support for his development plans. Let him claim what he likes, Charlotte replied. I have financing, detailed plans, and legal standing as an established business owner with prior claim to expansion space. Unless the council wishes to face a protracted legal battle they'll likely lose, they'll consider my proposal fairly. The sheriff looked impressed. You've been busy in Denver, I see. Very. Charlotte glanced at Ben. And we've made significant improvements to my original expansion plan, one that addresses the hotel need Harrington claims is so urgent. I'd like to hear more about that, the sheriff said with interest. Come by the store tomorrow, Charlotte offered. We'll show you the drawings. As darkness fell completely, the street cleared of onlookers. Ben walked Charlotte back to her store entrance. "An eventful day," he commented, "though I suspect tomorrow may bring even more developments." Harrington won't take this setback lightly, Charlotte agreed. We should be prepared for more aggressive tactics. Ben's expression grew serious. Charlotte, I don't want to overstep, but I'm concerned about your safety. Men like Harrington sometimes resort to intimidation when legal means fail. I can take care of myself, Charlotte replied automatically. I know you can. Ben's voice was gentle. But there's no weakness in accepting help when facing a powerful adversary. Would you consider staying at the hotel until this matter is resolved? Or perhaps having someone stay in your apartment with you? Charlotte's first instinct was to reject the suggestion outright. She had lived alone above her store for 3 years without incident. Yet the concern in Ben's eyes gave her pause. Harrington had already demonstrated willingness to circumvent proper procedures. What else might he attempt? I keep a loaded Colt in my bedside table and another behind the counter, she said finally. The store and apartment are secure, but perhaps you're right that extra precaution would be prudent. Relief softened Ben's features. Thank you for considering it. I could speak with Sheriff Taylor about arranging occasional patrols past the store during night hours. That seems reasonable, Charlotte conceded. And I'll ask Martha to stay over tomorrow when I attend the Hendersons' dinner. Ben nodded, clearly pleased by her pragmatism. Good. Now I should let you rest. Tomorrow promises to be busy with preparations for presenting our revised plan. Our plan, Charlotte repeated thoughtfully. It really has become that, hasn't it? If that bothers you, no, she interrupted. It doesn't. It's just new for me. Collaboration rather than solitary effort, Ben smiled. A different kind of independence, choosing alliance rather than having it imposed. His insight struck Charlotte forcefully. Throughout her business career, she had equated independence with solitary action, viewing collaboration as inherently compromising. But perhaps true independence lay in the freedom to choose connection when it enhanced rather than diminished one's capabilities. You have a way of reframing perspectives that's quite remarkable, she said quietly. As do you. Ben stepped slightly closer. Charlotte, may I? The question hung unfinished between them, but Charlotte understood. In the shadowed doorway of her store, with only distant street lamps illuminating their faces, something was shifting between them, business alliance evolving toward personal connection. Slowly, Charlotte nodded, her heart quickening as Ben moved closer still. His hand gently touched her cheek, warm and slightly rough from years of outdoor work. Then his lips met hers, the contact brief but infinitely tender. When he drew back, Charlotte found herself slightly breathless, emotions she had long suppressed rising to the surface. "Good night, Charlotte," Ben said softly. "Sleep well." "Good night, Ben." Inside her apartment, Charlotte moved through her evening routine in a daze of unfamiliar feelings. The kiss had been gentle, respectful, nothing like the presumptuous advances she had occasionally rebuffed from other men. Yet it had awakened something dormant within her, a longing for connection she had deliberately subordinated to her business ambitions. As she prepared for bed, Charlotte found herself contemplating possibilities she had long dismissed, sharing her life with someone who valued her strength rather than seeking to diminish it, building something together rather than alone. The thought was simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. Morning brought practical matters back into focus. Charlotte spent the early hours refining their revised expansion proposal, incorporating detailed cost projections for the lodging component. By the time Ben arrived at the store, she had created a comprehensive presentation for the town council. "Impressive work," he commented, reviewing her additions. "You've addressed potential objections before they can be raised." "Always the best strategy," Charlotte replied, "particularly with skeptical counselors who may be influenced by Harrington's promises." They spent the morning finalizing preparations and strategizing approaches to various council members. Charlotte's knowledge of local politics proved invaluable as they identified potential allies and opponents. "Councillor Davis will support us," she explained. "His hardware store would benefit significantly from my expanded operation. Councillor Prescott is likely against us. He owns shares in the existing hotel and would view additional lodging as unwelcome competition." "And Mayor Wilson?" Ben asked, conflicted. "He recognizes the value of my business to Aurora, but fears offending potential investors like Eastern Colorado Land Company." Charlotte tapped her pencil thoughtfully. "We need to emphasize the local employment my expansion will create. That's a sensitive point for him with elections coming next year." Their planning was interrupted by the arrival of a messenger bearing an official-looking envelope addressed to Charlotte. Inside was a notice of emergency town council meeting scheduled for that very afternoon. 3 o'clock, Charlotte read aloud. "Special session to discuss all proposals regarding the vacant lot adjacent to O'Malley's General Store." Ben frowned. "Short notice. Harrington's trying to rush the process." "But not illegally this time," Charlotte noted. This notice complies with the minimum requirements for emergency sessions. Sheriff Taylor must have made it clear that further procedural violations wouldn't be tolerated. Can you be ready to present by 3? Charlotte smiled confidently. Absolutely. Everything essential is prepared. I just need to make copies of the key financial projections for council members. By 2:30, they were ready. Charlotte dressed in her most professional attire, a tailored dark blue suit that conveyed both competence and femininity. Ben, too, had dressed carefully in his best clothes, understanding the importance of appearances in such proceedings. Nervous? He asked as they gathered their materials. Charlotte considered the question honestly. Not about the presentation itself, but about what Harrington might have orchestrated behind the scenes. Men like him rarely play fair when their interests are threatened. We'll counter whatever he presents, Ben assured her. Your proposal is sound, your financing secure, and your standing in this community substantial. Those are powerful advantages. The town hall was crowded when they arrived, news of the contentious land issue having spread throughout Aurora. Charlotte noted with satisfaction that many of her regular customers were present, their supportive nods bolstering her confidence. Harrington sat near the front with several well-dressed associates, their city attire contrasting sharply with the practical clothing of most Aurora residents. He glanced coldly at Charlotte as she and Ben took seats opposite him. Mayor Wilson called the meeting to order precisely at 3. Fellow citizens, we convene this emergency session to address proposals regarding the vacant lot adjacent to O'Malley's General Store. Recent developments have necessitated expedited consideration of this matter. Charlotte exchanged glances with Ben, both recognizing the carefully neutral phrasing that revealed nothing about which developments had prompted this urgency. We have 2 formal proposals before us, the mayor continued, from Eastern Colorado Land Company and from Miss Charlotte O'Malley. As this is a special session, we will hear presentations from both parties before opening to public comment. Harrington rose immediately. Mr. Mayor, if I may suggest, as the newer proposal, perhaps Eastern Colorado Land Company should present first. Miss O'Malley's interest in this property has been known for some time. Before the mayor could respond, Charlotte stood. Actually, Mr. Mayor, as I have substantially revised my proposal since its initial submission, including new elements directly relevant to the town's development needs, I believe chronological order of original application would be more appropriate. My interest was formally registered with the town clerk 4 months ago. Mayor Wilson looked uncomfortable but nodded. Miss O'Malley does have prior claim in terms of initial application. The council will hear her presentation first. Harrington's lips tightened in barely concealed annoyance as he resumed his seat. Charlotte gathered her materials and moved to the presentation table, Ben following with the architectural drawings. For the next 20 minutes, Charlotte presented her expanded vision for O'Malley's General Store with confident precision. She outlined the economic benefits to Aurora, the employment opportunities for local residents, the increased tax base for town improvements, and the support infrastructure for outlying farms and ranches. When she unveiled the lodging component, murmurs of interest rippled through the audience. As you can see, she concluded, this expansion addresses multiple community needs simultaneously. Enhanced commercial facilities, manufacturing space for local products, improved distribution capabilities for rural customers, and quality accommodations for business travelers and tourists once the railroad is completed. All while maintaining the architectural character of Aurora and ensuring profits remain within our community rather than flowing east. She presented her financing documentation and projected revenue figures, then stepped back, allowing council members to review the materials she had distributed. "Thank you, Miss O'Malley," Mayor Wilson said. "Most comprehensive. Now, Mr. Harrington, if you would present the Eastern Colorado Land Company proposal." Harrington approached the table with practiced confidence, his manner smooth and professional. His presentation emphasized the grandeur of the proposed hotel, its potential to attract wealthy visitors, and the prestige it would bring to Aurora. His architectural drawings showed an imposing three-story structure with elaborate Victorian detailing attractive, but distinctly out of character with Aurora's more practical buildings. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harrington concluded, "Eastern Colorado Land Company offers Aurora an opportunity to transform from a rural way station to a destination. Our hotel will put your charming town on the map for discriminating travelers throughout the territory." Throughout his presentation, Charlotte had noted key weaknesses in his arguments, primarily the limited local employment beyond the construction phase and the seasonal nature of the projected occupancy. Most tellingly, his financial details were vague, with emphasis on Eastern Colorado Land Company's resources rather than specific commitments to Aurora's economy. When public comments opened, Charlotte was pleased to see many local business owners rise to support her proposal. Mr. Peterson from the hardware store, Mrs. Lawson who ran the dress shop, even Reverend Miller spoke about the value of O'Malley's to the community and the benefits of supporting established local enterprise over outside development. Not all comments favored Charlotte, however. Several property owners expressed enthusiasm for the potential increased land values Harrington's Grand Hotel might bring, and the current hotel owner voiced concerns about competition from Charlotte's proposed lodging facilities. Throughout the discussion, Ben remained supportively beside Charlotte, occasionally offering clarification on technical aspects of their plan when asked, but primarily allowing her to lead the presentation. His quiet confidence in her abilities reinforced Charlotte's own assurance as she addressed questions and objections. Finally, Mayor Wilson called for council deliberation. "Given the complexity of this matter and the significant community interest, I propose the council retire to consider these proposals and reconvene for a vote in 1 hour." The council members agreed, filing into the private chamber adjacent to the main hall. As the audience dispersed temporarily, Harrington approached Charlotte and Ben. "Impressive maneuvering, Miss O'Malley," he said, his tone falsely cordial. "Though I question the sudden appearance of lodging in your plans. Rather convenient timing, wouldn't you say?" Charlotte met his gaze coolly. "Good business requires adaptation to market conditions, Mr. Harrington, something a company of your stature surely understands." "Indeed." Harrington's attention shifted to Ben. "And you are?" "Benjamin Blackwell," Ben replied evenly, "business associate of Miss O'Malley's." "I see." Harrington's gaze narrowed slightly. "New to Aurora, aren't you? Interesting that you've allied yourself with local interests so quickly." "I recognize value when I see it," Ben stated simply. "Miss O'Malley's contribution to this community is substantial and her business vision sound." Harrington's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Well, we shall see whose vision the council prefers. Good day to you both." As he walked away, Charlotte released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "He's worried. Our presentation was stronger than he anticipated." "And his was weaker," Ben observed. "Too much emphasis on prestige, too little on practical benefits to Aurora." They used the council's deliberation time to speak with supportive community members, reinforcing key points of their proposal and addressing any lingering questions. Charlotte was heartened by the positive response from many influential citizens. When the council returned, the atmosphere in the town hall was tense with anticipation. Mayor Wilson called the meeting back to order, his expression giving no hint of the decision reached. After careful consideration of both proposals, examining financial commitments, community benefits, employment creation, tax implications, and alignment with Aurora's long-term development goals, the town council has reached a decision. Charlotte felt Ben's hand close reassuringly over hers beneath the table as they waited. By a vote of 4-1, the council approves the sale of the vacant lot to Miss Charlotte O'Malley for her proposed expansion of O'Malley's General Store, including the new lodging and manufacturing components. A cheer erupted from Charlotte's supporters as Harrington's face darkened with anger. Mayor Wilson raised his hands for silence. The decision reflects the council's judgment that Miss O'Malley's proposal offers more sustainable long-term benefits to Aurora, creates more permanent employment for our citizens, and represents appropriate scale development for our community at this time. Charlotte sat momentarily stunned, the victory washing over her in waves of relief and vindication. Ben squeezed her hand gently, his smile warm with shared triumph. "Congratulations," he whispered as Mayor Wilson continued outlining the terms of the land transfer. Harrington stormed out before the meeting formally concluded, his associates hurrying after him. Charlotte barely noticed his departure, focused instead on accepting congratulations from well-wishers and discussing next steps with council members. It was nearly evening when she and Ben finally left the town hall, walking slowly back toward her store in the golden light of sunset. "We did it," Charlotte said, still somewhat disbelieving. 4-1 stronger support than I expected. "Your presentation was compelling," Ben replied. "And your standing in this community clearly carries significant weight." Charlotte glanced at him, suddenly remembering their dinner engagement. "The Hendersons are expecting us at 7. We should prepare." Ben checked his pocket watch. "Plenty of time. Though perhaps we should celebrate our victory first." Without warning, he pulled her into the narrow space between buildings, away from curious eyes, and kissed her. Unlike their first gentle kiss, this one carried the exhilaration of shared triumph, his arms encircling her waist as her hands found their way to his shoulders. When they separated, Charlotte was breathless, her heart racing with emotions long denied. "Ben, I've wanted to do that since you demolished Harrington's arguments so eloquently," he admitted, still holding her close. "You were magnificent." Charlotte laughed softly. "Is that what attracts you? My ability to dismantle pompous businessmen? That and so much more." Ben's expression grew serious. "Your intelligence, your determination, your commitment to building something meaningful. Charlotte, I've never met anyone like you." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. For years, Charlotte had defended her independence fiercely, seeing romantic attachment as inherently threatening to the life she had built. Yet with Ben, something different was emerging: partnership that strengthened rather than diminished, connection that expanded rather than constrained. "I'm still not looking for a husband," she said softly, needing to maintain some boundary against the overwhelming feelings rising within her. Ben smiled. "I'm not proposing marriage, yet." He touched her cheek gently. "I'm proposing possibility. Time to discover what we might build together, just as we built that presentation together." Charlotte considered his words, recognizing the truth in them. What they had created for the council meeting had been stronger than either could have accomplished alone. Her local knowledge and business acumen, combined with his practical experience and fresh perspective. "Possibility," she echoed. "I think I can accept that." Their dinner with the Hendersons that evening was pleasant, if predictably filled with thinly veiled inquiries about their relationship. Charlotte found herself less bothered by the curiosity than she might have expected, perhaps because Ben handled the questions with diplomatic charm that neither confirmed nor denied romantic involvement. "Mr. Blackwell has been invaluable in refining my expansion plans," Charlotte explained when Mrs. Henderson asked directly about their association. "His building experience provided insights I might have overlooked. And Miss O'Malley's business vision has given me new perspectives on commercial development," Ben added smoothly. "We find our respective skills quite complementary." The knowing smile Mrs. Henderson exchanged with her husband made it clear they interpreted complementary skills as code for deeper attachment, but Charlotte found she didn't mind. The truth was more complex than either simple romance or mere business association. Over the following weeks, this complexity unfolded naturally. Construction began on Charlotte's expansion, with Ben offering practical oversight that freed her to maintain regular store operations. Their working partnership evolved alongside deepening personal connection. Days spent in productive collaboration and evenings in conversations that ranged from childhood memories to future aspirations. Charlotte introduced Ben to her network of suppliers and customers, while he shared ranching knowledge that helped her better serve the agricultural community. Together they created systems for the new manufacturing workshop that would employ local craftspeople in producing goods for both the store and wider markets. Throughout this period, Charlotte maintained her independence while discovering the unexpected benefits of true partnership. Ben respected her authority in business matters, offered suggestions without imposing directions, and supported her decisions even when they differed from his recommendations. In turn, she found herself increasingly valuing his perspectives and enjoying the synergy of their combined thinking. Their personal relationship developed with similar, organic progression. Dinner together became a regular occurrence, initially at the hotel restaurant but gradually shifting to meals Charlotte prepared in her apartment. Physical affection evolved from brief touches to embraces and kisses that grew increasingly passionate, though Ben never pressured for more than Charlotte was ready to share. 6 weeks after the council decision, with the expansion's first-floor framing complete, Ben received a telegram from Texas that required his attention. "Ranch manager reports problems with the southern water rights," he explained as they sat in Charlotte's parlor reviewing construction progress. "Nothing catastrophic, but I should return to address it personally." Charlotte felt an unexpected pang at the prospect of his departure, stronger than she had anticipated. "How long will you be gone? 2 weeks, perhaps 3. Ben took her hand gently. "I'll return as soon as matters are resolved." "Of course," Charlotte said, striving for practicality despite the hollow feeling expanding in her chest. "Your ranch is your primary business. It needs your attention." Ben studied her face carefully. "Charlotte, I want to be clear about something. My intention is to return to Aurora. What we're building here, both the store expansion and us, matters deeply to me." "But your life is in Texas," Charlotte said softly. "Your ranch, your investments there. A ranch can be sold or managed. Investments can be transferred." Ben's gaze was steady. "What can't be replaced is what I've found with you." Charlotte looked away, emotions conflicting within her. "Ben, I don't want you to abandon what you've built for something that's still uncertain." "Look at me," he requested gently. When she did, his expression was open, vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. "Nothing about my feelings for you is uncertain. I love you, Charlotte O'Malley. I love your strength, your vision, your remarkable mind. I love the way you've built your life on your own terms." and I believe we could build something extraordinary together." The declaration hung between them, profound in its simplicity. Charlotte felt tears threatening, overwhelmed by feelings she had spent years believing she would never experience. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted finally. "I've spent so long defining myself by my independence, by not needing anyone. I'm afraid of losing myself in loving you." Ben moved closer, taking both her hands in his. "Charlotte, the last thing I want is for you to be less than who you are. Your independence, your strength, these are qualities to be cherished, not diminished. Love shouldn't require surrender of self. But practically speaking, your ranch, my store, hundreds of miles between them. Details to be worked through, not insurmountable barriers." Ben's thumbs traced gentle circles on her palms. "I'm not asking for answers tonight, only that you consider possibilities while I'm away." Charlotte nodded slowly. "I can do that." Ben left for Texas 2 days later, the parting more difficult than Charlotte had expected. She threw herself into overseeing the expansion construction, using physical labor and business demands to distract from his absence. Yet in quiet moments, his words returned to her, not just his declaration of love, but his vision of partnership that enhanced rather than diminished independence. Throughout her adult life, Charlotte had equated romantic attachment with subordination of her ambitions and identity. Her observations of marriages in Aurora had reinforced this belief, as she watched formerly capable women gradually subsumed into their husbands' shadows. The prospect of such diminishment had always seemed too high a price for companionship. But Benjamin Blackwell offered something different: respect that never wavered, support without control, partnership that multiplied rather than divided. In his absence, Charlotte found herself contemplating a future she had never previously allowed herself to imagine. Shared purpose alongside maintained individuality. 2 weeks stretched into 3. Ben's letters arriving regularly with updates on his water rights dispute and sincere expressions of how deeply he missed her. Charlotte replied with equal honesty, sharing both practical progress on the expansion and her evolving thoughts about their relationship. When Ben finally returned to Aurora after 24 days away, Charlotte was directing roofers on the expansion's second floor. Seeing him ride up Main Street, she descended the scaffolding with more haste than dignity, her heart racing in a most unprofessional manner. "Welcome back," she said when he dismounted, striving for composure despite her joy at seeing him. Ben's smile was warm as he removed his hat. "Miss O'Malley, I see you've made remarkable progress in my absence." "The basic structure is complete," Charlotte confirmed, gesturing to the substantial addition taking shape beside her original store. "We're beginning interior work next week." "Impressive." Ben's gaze held hers, conveying much more than casual approval. "Might I have a moment of your time? I've brought something from Texas I'd like to show you." Curious, Charlotte led him to her office, aware of interested glances from her workers and customers. Once the door closed behind them, Ben set down his saddlebags and turned to her. "Charlotte," he began, then stopped, simply opening his arms instead. She moved into his embrace without hesitation, the weeks of separation dissolving as his arms encircled her. His kiss was tender at first, then deepening with shared longing, his hands warm against her back as she pressed closer. When they finally separated, Charlotte was breathless, her carefully maintained composure thoroughly disrupted. "I missed you," she admitted, the simple truth easier to express than the more complex emotions beneath it. "And I you." Ben's smile was gentle as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "More than I can adequately express." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small leather folder. "While in Texas, I made some decisions and arrangements I'd like to share with you." Charlotte accepted the folder, opening it to find legal documents inside. As she read the first page, her eyes widened in surprise. "Ben, this is a deed transfer. You're selling your ranch to my foreman," Ben confirmed. "James has managed it capably for years." The water rights dispute demonstrated his competence in handling complex situations. "He's ready for ownership, and I'm ready for new ventures." Charlotte stared at him, stunned by the implications. "But you've spent years building that ranch. It's your family legacy." "Legacy isn't only about place," Ben said quietly. "It's about values, about building something meaningful. My father wanted me to create something substantive, not necessarily to remain tied to one piece of land forever." "What are you saying?" Charlotte asked, though she suspected she already knew. "I'm saying that I've found where I belong, Charlotte, with you in Aurora, building something together that neither of us could create alone." Ben took her hands in his. "I'm not asking you to abandon what you've built or to diminish your independence. I'm proposing partnership in business and in life." Charlotte searched his face, finding only sincerity and unwavering commitment. "You would leave Texas, your established business, everything familiar, for me." "For us," Ben corrected gently. "For what we could create together. I've retained some investments in Texas that can be managed from a distance, but yes, I'm relocating to Aurora permanently." The magnitude of his decision humbled her. Throughout her life, Charlotte had feared that loving someone would require sacrificing her dreams, her independence, her carefully constructed identity. Yet here was Benjamin Blackwell, offering precisely the opposite sacrifice on his part to honor who she was and what she had built. "I don't know what to say," she admitted, emotions overwhelming her usual eloquence. Ben smiled. "You don't need to say anything yet. I'm not pressuring for immediate response. I only wanted you to understand the depth of my commitment to our possibilities." Charlotte took a deep breath, then made a decision that felt simultaneously frightening and absolutely right. "I love you," she said, the words unfamiliar on her tongue but undeniably true. "I think I have for some time but was afraid to acknowledge it." Joy illuminated Ben's face. "Afraid." "Loving someone means vulnerability," Charlotte explained. "For someone who has built her life on self-reliance, that's terrifying. And yet here you are, being courageous as always." Ben touched her cheek gently. "Charlotte O'Malley, would you consider marrying me? Not to diminish your independence, but to share it. To build something together that honors who we both are." The question hung between them, momentous, yet somehow inevitable. Charlotte thought of all the times she had declared she was too independent for a husband. The protective barrier those words had created around her hard-won autonomy. Yet Benjamin Blackwell had never sought to breach that barrier. Instead, he had simply demonstrated that true partnership could strengthen independence rather than threaten it. "Yes," she said finally, certainty growing with the spoken affirmation. "Yes, I will marry you, Benjamin Blackwell. Not because I need a husband, but because I choose you as my partner." His smile was brilliant as he pulled her close again. "That's exactly why I need you, Charlotte. Not because you need me, but because you choose me freely, independently, completely yourself." As they sealed their commitment with a kiss, Charlotte felt not the diminishment she had always feared from romantic attachment, but expansion of possibility, of vision, of shared strength. She remained Charlotte O'Malley, independent businesswoman of Aurora, but now with a partner who valued that independence as essential rather than inconvenient. Their wedding 3 months later was a community celebration, the town turning out in full to witness the union of O'Malley's determined proprietress and the cattleman who had won her heart. The ceremony took place in the newly completed second floor of the expansion. the space that would soon welcome travelers to Aurora, decorated festively for the occasion. Charlotte wore a gown of deep blue rather than traditional white, a choice that reflected her practical nature and independent spirit. Ben stood tall and proud beside her, his vows emphasizing partnership and mutual respect rather than traditional submission. "I pledge not to lead or follow," he declared, "but to walk beside you, to build with you, to cherish your strength as fervently as your tenderness." Charlotte's answering vows acknowledged the journey that had brought her to this unexpected destination. "I once declared myself too independent for a husband, believing that marriage meant surrendering the self I had worked so hard to become. You showed me that true partnership enhances rather than diminishes, that independence and connection can strengthen each other. I pledge to build our future together without ever forgetting who we are individually." Reverend Miller pronounced them husband and wife with evident satisfaction, having watched their relationship develop with community approval. As Ben kissed his bride, cheers erupted from the assembled townspeople, celebrating not just a marriage but the union of two complementary visions for Aurora's future. The expansion opened officially a week after the wedding. Its combined functions of enhanced mercantile space, craft manufacturing workshops, and quality lodging rooms immediately successful. Ben's practical building knowledge and Charlotte's business acumen had created something neither could have achieved alone, a physical manifestation of their partnership philosophy. Eastern Colorado Land Company eventually built a smaller hotel on Aurora's outskirts, Harrington having recognized the wisdom of adapting to changing circumstances rather than continuing fruitless opposition. The development actually complemented O'Malley's and Blackwell's mercantile and lodging, each serving different segments of the growing market as the railroad brought increased commerce to Aurora. 5 years later, Charlotte stood on the porch of their home adjacent to the now thriving business, watching Ben teach their 3-year-old son Patrick to ride his first pony in the fenced yard. Their infant daughter Elizabeth slept peacefully in her arms, the next generation of the family they had created together. "Mama, look," Patrick called proudly as he balanced without his father's supporting hand for the first time. "I'm riding by myself. Wonderful, darling." Charlotte called back, her heart full as she observed Ben's careful supervision, ready to catch their son if needed but allowing him the independence to try. Ben glanced up, meeting her gaze with the same warmth that had first drawn her to him years before. In that moment, Charlotte recognized how perfectly their life together embodied the truth they had discovered together, that independence and connection could coexist beautifully, each strengthening rather than diminishing the other. "I'm still independent," she murmured to her sleeping daughter, "and that's exactly why your father and I work so well together." As if hearing her thoughts, Ben led their son's pony toward the porch, Patrick chattering excitedly about his achievement. When they reached her, Ben leaned down to kiss her gently. "Happy?" he asked softly. Charlotte smiled, surveying the life they had built, their thriving business, their growing family, their deep partnership that honored both their individual strengths. "Completely," she answered. "Independently and together."